Welcome back to Bible for Life. Today is the 22nd anniversary of the incident that happened in September 11th of 2001. Today's a today's very tragic day for a lot of people because it reminds them of how their relatives, how a lot of their friends, very close people died. However, a lot of these instances in which people ask themselves, where is God? A lot of this happens so we are reminded that we need God, that the world is full of violence because we don't go back to what God says. Book of Revelations, uh, Book of Revelations it's a book of encouragement to the Christians that were receiving persecution during the first century. A lot of these Christians would be asking themselves, where's God? Why are we suffering so much? Well, in Revelation 20, God reveals to John, because the book of Revelation is also what God revealed to John. That's why it's called the book of Revelation. Seen in chapter 20, we're going to read a few verses. It says, And I, this is John speaking, I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, the old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, so 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Now, I want to take a deeper look into this, and we see in verse 1 says that an angel came down from heaven having the key of the bottomless pit. Now this key represents authority. If you go to Revelation chapter 1, Revelation in the first chapter of Revelations, verse 18, Jesus tells John, I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. So we see that Jesus has authority over death, and he has authority over hell. Now, we'll go back to chapter 20. We see the second part of verse 1. It says, And a great chain in his hand. This chain shows restraint. Jesus has restrained over Satan and his demons. An example of this is in the book of Mark. In the book of Mark, chapter 5, we see that in verse 3 that there was a man that was dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him. No, not with chains. Not even with chains they could restrain him. Verse 4 says, because that he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been broken, been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces, neither could any man tame him. However, we see in verse 6, but when he, the man with the unclean spirit, he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice, and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God, that thou torment me not. And then Jesus tells him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. So we see that even the demons are submissive to Jesus. He has restraint over them. Now we go back to Revelation 20. We see verse 2 that the dragon and the serpent which is being talked about here is the devil and Satan. And we know another representation of this is in Genesis 3, whenever Satan took the form of serpent, or he controlled the serpent, and he caused man to sin. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the 1,000 years here. These 1,000 years are they're not literal. These 1,000 years is more talking about a timeline, a time space, an age, and it's talking about the church age. We go to the book of Matthew. In the book of Matthew, chapter 16, book of Matthew, chapter 16, Peter had just confessed that Jesus was the Christ and he was the Messiah. And Jesus congratulates them. He tells them that nothing in says that then it says in verse 17, and Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood had not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. Now check verse 18. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Now verse 19 says, And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Now we see that Jesus establishes his church. In Acts 2:38, he gives the keys to Peter. Peter creates or speaks the first sermon, and that's where the church starts. So we see that the 1,000 years is the age of the church. Now the message portrayed in the book of Revelations is a message of encouragement. And no matter how hard times seem, no matter what hard events you're living through, no matter what happens, we have to remain faithful in Christ. Because even though life is hard and we will suffer temptations, in the end, followers of Jesus will be victorious. The reason we have to remain faithful is because we don't know when Jesus will come. It says in verse 12 of chapter 22, Revelation chapter 22, verse 12, it says, And behold, I come quickly, my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Now we see that Jesus is coming quickly. We don't know when, but how it is the scriptures mention, and he will come like a thief in the night. Thief in the night does not announce his coming. So we have to be prepared. However, not everybody will be saved on the day of judgment. See verse 14 of that same chapter. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. So what does Jesus command? Jesus commands in Mark 16, book of Mark, chapter 16, verse 16, he says, He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. So we have to believe and be baptized to be saved. Check the next part. But he that believeth not shall be damned. So if you don't believe, obviously you're not going to get baptized. That's why baptism is not on that second part. But if you believe and you're baptized, you will be saved. But if you don't believe and don't get baptized, you will not be saved. That's why Christians should have comfort whenever something bad happens in their life, because we know that no matter what, God is in control.